Switzerland is a popular country for immigration. At the end of 2022, 26% of the population living in Switzerland did not have the Swiss citizenship. At the end of 2021, according to the Swiss Federal Office of Statistics, 39% of the population in Switzerland had a migration background. This means that either they or their parents were born abroad. In a graphic, it looks like this. The orange part shows the part of the population living in Switzerland without a migration background. The dark blue part shows the proportion of people with a migration background in Switzerland that were born abroad. The light blue proportion here shows the people living in Switzerland that were born in the country but who have at least one parent who was born abroad. Let's look at another graphic that is interesting. At the end of 2021, a total of 8.73 million people were living in Switzerland. Out of these people, 7.32 million were over 15 years old. Out of these 7.32 million people, a little less than 4.5 million were Swiss citizens without a migration background. Nearly 3 million people living in Switzerland at the end of 2021, on the other hand, have a migration background, meaning either they or their parents were born abroad. This number is indicated with the dark blue graph here, which is a combination of the other two blue graphs, which are shown just below. The grey graph at the very bottom here shows how many people have a migration status that cannot be determined because of a lack of information. As we can see, the orange graph, which represents the people without a migration background in Switzerland, is actually going down. With the dark blue graph, on the other hand, which are the people living in Switzerland with a migration background, we clearly see a trend to go upwards. Seeing those numbers makes it very clear that Switzerland is a very popular immigration country. Part of this is due to the good labor market and the good working conditions here. In this video, I will talk about some of the advantages of working in Switzerland, which will explain, at least in part, the country's popularity as a country of immigration. Before we get started, in just a second, I would just like to welcome you back to my channel. My name is Laura. I'm an attorney working in Switzerland for a court of law, where I currently focus on migration law amongst other areas of the law. Now let's look at what makes Switzerland a great place to work. One first point I would like to mention here is Switzerland's very low unemployment rate. According to the Swiss State Secretary for Economic Affairs, or the SECO as we call it, the unemployment rate in Switzerland has just reached a new low at the end of June 2023, with only 1.9% of the population of working age being unemployed. I know from my personal experience that it can be a bit tough for foreigners that just moved to Switzerland to find their very first job here. But it is almost guaranteed that everybody will find a job at some point, probably sooner rather than later. Once in the employment market, there is plenty of jobs available in Switzerland, which also allows you to change your job every now and then. Something else that is pretty unique about Switzerland are the high salaries here. The average monthly net salary that is currently paid in Switzerland is 6,550 Swiss francs, which is equivalent to 7,587 US dollars. This corresponds to a yearly net income of 78,600 Swiss francs or 91,044 US dollars. In most countries, that is a lot of money. But something that needs to be considered when analyzing or comparing Swiss salaries is that they correspond to the costs of living here, which are also very high compared to other countries. But for foreign workers, the figures I just mentioned can play an important role in their decision of moving to Switzerland and working here. Another aspect that often amazes foreigners, especially coming from the United States, is that in Switzerland, by law, all employees that don't just work at an hourly pay rate, but that have a fixed salary, have a minimum of 4 weeks of vacation per year. But a lot more common, and pretty much the new standard now, is a minimum of at least 5 weeks of annual vacation. Also, in addition to these 5 weeks of vacation, there is at least 9 federal public holidays for everybody. And depending in which canton, meaning which state in Switzerland you are living in, there is on average another 2 to 4 days of public holidays when people are not working. That means that you get at least 5 to 7 weeks per year as paid time off. Another advantage of working in Switzerland is that it is becoming more and more normal and more common, especially amongst the young generations, to work part-time. Work weeks of 4 or 4.5 days are very popular right now. That is, if you don't have any other commitments besides work. If you have such other obligations, for instance, if you have young children to care for, it is more common to work 3 or 4 days a week. The option of working part-time allows people to be more flexible and to choose how they want to improve and optimize their work-life balance. Another benefit of working in Switzerland is the strong social security system here. Although I am only going to point out a few points in this video, there would be other benefits that could be mentioned as well. One example is that employees are automatically insured by their employer for any kind of accidents occurring either during work hours or outside of work if they work at least 8 hours a week. There is also no limit to sick days in Switzerland. If you're sick, you simply do not work, and as long as you have a doctor's note that states that you're actually sick, there is no problem with that. In case of a severe illness, because of a severe health issue, it is in some cases even possible to receive up to 80% of the last salary for up to 720 days, meaning for up to almost 2 years. This money is paid by a special insurance that nowadays most employers take out for their employees in case that they get sick for a long time. Similar to that, people in Switzerland can get unemployment benefits corresponding to 70 or 80% of their last salary for up to 520 days or for up to 220 days as the minimum. The exact number of days during which they receive those payments depend on the age of the person, on how long they have been working in Switzerland, and on whether they have child support obligations or not. One of the requirements for receiving those unemployment benefits is that you must have worked for 12 months during the course of the past 24 months before your last contract ended. While being unemployed, there are of course other obligations that you have to fulfill to keep receiving those payments. These are, for instance, that you must keep applying to jobs and also accept a job offer if it fits your profile. But overall, Switzerland still has a very generous unemployment system. This can be an advantage because it can at least reduce the stress in case of an unexpected layoff. Another last advantage of working in Switzerland that I would like to mention here is that if your employment contract gets terminated against your will, the notice period is usually at least 1 month. There are very few exceptions to this rule. The most common one is that during your probation time, meaning at the very beginning of your employment relationship, the notice period is shorter and limited to 7 days. After a few years of working though, it is very common to have a notice period of at least 2 to 3 months until your contract ends, which again can ease the stress in case of an unexpected layoff. However, it must be mentioned that this rule goes both ways, meaning if employees want to leave their job, they also have a notice period of 2 to 3 months until they are allowed to start their new job. In general, Switzerland has a lot of benefits to offer for employees here. That makes it a very interesting country for foreigners that wish to work abroad. If you're wondering what the options are to work and or study in Switzerland, I will have a few videos coming up soon which will explain more about that. So if you're interested in learning more about that, I suggest you subscribe to my channel now to make sure that you don't miss out on those videos. Also, if you like this video or if you found it informative, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Otherwise, thank you guys for watching and I hope to talk to you again soon.